In this video, we will find the coordinates of 30, 45, and 60-degree angles. First, find the exact values of sine of alpha, cosine of alpha, and tangent of alpha for an alpha 3 pi over 4. It is important to know where 3 pi over 4 is located on a unit circle. 3 pi over 4 is a 3/4 of a pi, so that means if I were to divide this into two sections, that would be pi over 4, as we all know. This will be 2 pi over 4, which makes sense to call it as a pi over 2. So then this will be 3 pi over 4. To find the cosine and sine of an alpha, at alpha, which is the one that forms the angle with the x-axis, we need to look at pi over 4 first. The coordinate of a pi over 4 is equal to square root of 2 over 2 and square root of 2 over 2. On the first quadrant, 3 pi over 4, only the x-axis will become negative. So this will become negative square root of 2 over 2 and positive square root of 2 over 2. So sine of alpha will be the y value, which will be square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of alpha is the x value, so it'll be negative square root of 2 over 2. Tangent of alpha is equal to sine over cosine, so it will be negative 1. Find the exact values of sine, cosine, and tangent of 4 pi over 3. First, locate where 4 pi over 3 is on a unit circle. 4 pi over 3 is basically pi over 3 more than pi. So pi plus pi over 3 is 4 pi over 3. That means starting at pi, I need pi over 3 more. So that's going to be 4 pi over 3. So this angle that forms with the x-axis will be pi over 3. Now look at the pi over 3 on the first quadrant. The coordinates of pi over 3 on the first quadrant is 1 over 2 and square root of 3 over 2. So apply that same logic on exactly the opposite side. We get negative 1 over 2 and negative square root of 3 over 2. So x-axis will be cosine, y-axis will be sine. For the tangent of 4 pi over 3, it's the same as sine over cosine. So that's negative 3 over 2 over negative 1 over 2, which makes it negative 3 over 2. Multiply by the reciprocal, 2 over 1. Cancel out the negatives as well, so we're left with square root of 3. Without using a calculator, show that 8 sine of pi over 3 times cosine of 5 pi over 6 is equal to negative 6. So we need to locate pi over 3 and 5 pi over 6. Let's do it on a separate graph. Pi over 3 is the 60-degree angle. Sine is the y-coordinate, so that becomes square root of 3 over 2. So this is the value for sine of pi over 3. For the cosine of 5 pi over 6, that means it's pi over 6 short of being a pi. So that's this angle, pi over 6 short. Cosine is the x value. Therefore, we need to look at the pi over 6 on this side. Pi over 6 on the first quadrant is equal to square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. So applying that onto the opposite side, we know it must be negative root 3 over 2, and half. Since we're looking at again the cosine, it means it's the x value. So negative square root of 3 over 2 is cosine 5 pi over 6. Now we need to simplify. 8 sine pi over 3, which is root 3 over 2, then multiply with cosine 5 pi over 6, which we found as a negative square root of 3 over 2. Is this equal to negative 6? 4, 1, one more time, 2, 1. So we're left with 2 times square root of 3 times negative square root of 3. This makes it 3. And 3 times 2 is 6, but we have a negative, so negative 6. So yes, that's true. Find all angles between 0 and 2 pi, a cosine of 1 over 2. Cosine of an angle is equal to 1 over 2. So then we need to look at where is cosine positive. All students take calculus. So this is an angle theta, that is an angle theta. We know that cosine is half on pi over 3. So that must be pi over 3. This then is pi over 3 as well, but negative because it's going to a clockwise rotation. So in order to find, starting over here all the way around it, we need to subtract from 2 pi. So the angle theta must be pi over 3, and the other one must be 5 pi over 3.